What's up guys, Woody here, back with another Gwent video. It's not a deck video this time, it's back with another video in a new to Gwent series. And this one was requested by a user in, not last video, the video before. Someone called Afraid of the Folly, someone I don't know amazing well, but I do know them. And yeah, they basically asked for a faction overview for new players. Going through each faction, what does each faction try to do? What's the idea between each faction? What's their kind of archetypes? Obviously there's lots of little archetypes within each faction, but kind of just going over them. Scoia'tael, what's their main game plan? Northern Realms, what's their main game plan? Now, I was struggling, I was toying with this video. I was thinking, okay, how do I approach it? Do I go with finishes? Do I go with cards I would craft in these factions? And do you know what? I've just gone, no, we're going to go straight off the bat. We're literally going to go for an overview of each faction. So I'm going to be talking about big mechanics they have. If you see a certain card come out, that's probably what you want to get rid of. If you're building a deck, that's probably what you're going to want to put in your deck for that that faction. But we just see where it goes. I want to try and keep this not longer than half an hour because I appreciate people's time. But also there are 5 factions to get through, and getting through them 6 minutes at a time is not going to be the easiest. But I'm wasting time now, so let's jump straight into it. I'm going to kick off with Scoia'tael. We'll go straight in with Scoia'tael. So I'm just going to click on this Fran deck because it will bring up the Scoia'tael cards. Okay, so Scoia'tael are a faction full of elves, full of dwarves, full of dryads, all that kind of stuff. And they have several mechanics going for them. Now, the biggest thing that Scoia'tael can do over other factions is self-boost. So by self-boost, I mean that there are lots of cards that you can put out there for. The Great Oak at the moment is a great example because it's played in a lot of decks, and this is, so for example, this can either damage a card or boost itself based on the amount of allies you have on a row. So again, that's a self-boosting card. Okay, lots of the Scoia'tael cards have boost. Aeglis is a complete finisher for a Fran deck, and this here is a on turn end double the amount boosted on self. So you'd play it, you'd then play Garrison from the deck, which boosts the unit. Sorry, Garrison from the graveyard with Fran's ability, which boosts the card by 10. But because this ability, it would boost it by 20, which is a huge play off one card. So lots of these cards boost, and they get value over time. Okay, a good example of that is if I come down to the dwarfs down here. We have these guys here. Okay, every allied turn on turn end boosts self by 1 if this unit is boosted, and that's one of Scoia'tael's big strong points, is the ability they can kind of come out and they can just tick for time. They tick by themselves for time because we're going to a faction in this video later on that are ones that get lots of value over time with boosts. But these ones, you set them up, you get them boosted, and they just tick and they tick and they tick and they tick. And we go back to like their leaders, or we go to the leaders for the Scoia'tael. You have stuff like Philavandrel, who boosts all units in hand by 1. So you then play the dwarf that boosts itself. All of a sudden, it's coming on the board already boosted, so it's already starting to tick. You have Bluver that can move lanes, and then what that does, if you move an ally lane, it boosts it by 2. So I could pop the dwarf down, throw it across. Now it's boosted by 2. Then I could pop something on it, and then put a shield on it. Now it's got a shield, and it's ticking for value. Ethany's more control because she's doing the full damage. Fran is not that strong at the moment. She's okay, but she's very linear in what you can play with her. But this is huge value. 4 charges. You turn a trap into a 3-point card. That's 12 points this guy gets. And it's kind of, again, it's self-boosting your power, your deck. Okay, so one of the big things that Scoia'tael get out is self-boosting, and that's what you need to know when you're going to get rid of and when you're going to get rid of them. Okay, they also run they're the only faction that can run traps, and a big point here that a lot of beginner players don't know about are traps count as artifacts. Traps are artifacts. No two ways about it. Okay, if we just come down here and try and find a trap somewhere, just find Pitfall Trap. Okay, so this trap is huge. It's not run in many decks. But basically, whatever card you play next, it destroys. Unless it's a artifact removal. It's artifact removal, it won't destroy that. You'll get rid of the Pitfall Trap, okay? They have ways of bringing traps back out the graveyard and playing them again, of putting traps back in hand and playing them again. The favourite trap that is in not every Scoia'tael deck, but is in a lot of Scoia'tael decks, is Crushing Trap. And that's because it's basically a lacerate for 1 provision less. So after 2 allied turns, on turn end, damage all enemy units on the row with the most units by 2. It's a free, well, it's not a free lacerate, it's a lacerate on the row, and you're going to get the most value because it's going to be on the row with the most units. These all count of artifacts, okay? But if you're building a deck with Scoia'tael, I definitely recommend you play around with some traps, especially Crushing Trap, especially if you're running Broover, because you can have the ability to move them a row and then get a trap off, which gives you a lot of value on Broover's leader ability. And another big mechanic they have that you need to be mindful of and careful of is resilience. So resilience is basically, if a card has resilience, then it carries over between rounds. So let's say round 2, you dry pass, they drop a card. Round 2, I can't remember his name now, it's completely lost me. I believe he's 9 provisions up here somewhere. There he is. Zigrin. Gabor Zigrin. They drop this guy on the melee row. He gains resilience, meaning that they draw the card, but 5-point card carries over to round 3. So another big mechanic they have. There's not many cards that go into the resilience. If you're playing Philavandrel, if they're playing Philavandrel, there's a chance they have the other dwarfs. So there's maybe 4, potentially 5 cards that maybe they play with resilience, but that is another mechanic to know about. But overall, Scoia'tael, when you're playing against them, they're going to be quite controlly. They're quite a controlly archetype overall. Broover has the ability to control your lanes and do damage. Effney has the ability to set up for big plays by pinging units for a single digit. So that you can set up stuff like Scorch that removes all the highest units on the board. If you have a 6 out, a 5 out, and a 4 out, she can ping the 6 twice, the 5 once, play Scorch, and all of a sudden, she's just done 15 points of damage in one play. So she has huge ability to do that. Fran can be quite controlling by using stuff like Vigo's Muzzle, so she can play Vigo's Muzzle, sees a 5-cost card, play it again from the graveyard, sees another 5-cost card. Scoia'tael are quite controlling. They try to manipulate the way you're playing the game. And that's what the best thing to think about Scoia'tael is. If you're playing at Scoia'tael, you want to try and win round 1. You don't want Scoia'tael having last say. That's probably the best advice I can give you on any Scoia'tael deck. Do not give them last say. Effney will run away with last say. Fran especially will go bonkers with last say. Chances are she'll play Aeglis and she'll get like a 40-point play on Aeglis with last say. Broover can set up some big trap plays. They'll play Grey Oak maybe on last say. There's lots of cards that Scoia'tael want last say for, and that's what I really push for. They push long round 1 to get last say. That's probably the best thing you can do, is push them round 1. Even if you don't win round 1, push them as far as you can to get cards out of their hand, force them to play golds that are going to lose them value in round 3, and then just get out of the round when you know you physically can't go anymore. That's obviously if you're on red. If you're on blue, then just try not to get caught on even, basically. If you have to get out of the round, get out of the round. If you do win round 1 against Scoia'tael and you have the right cards, it's never a bad idea to push round 2. Especially against someone like Philavandrel, because when if he hasn't popped the leader ability, which gives all cards in hand a boost by 1, which, let's imagine they got a full hand, that's 10 points. If you get down to, say, 3 points round 1, 3 cards each in hand, so you draw to 6 round 2, you then can try and bleed them down to about 4 again. When they draw round 3, that's going to be 7 cards in hand, meaning when they pop leader ability, they're only getting 7 points off leader ability, not 10. And that can be the difference between winning and losing. So yeah, Scoia'tael, very control in terms of their faction overall. Just try to win round 1 of them. Don't give them last say, and try and bleed them if it's appropriate round 2. Next, we're going to move to, I'm going to be honest, my least favourite faction, and that is Skellige. I don't know why I have anything against Skellige. I don't know. Just people constantly ask me, why do you hate Skellige so much? I don't know why I don't like Skellige, okay? Just something about them, I find them, they're a bit better now. I like Svalblod. I used to like Svalblod until everyone started playing Svalblod. I just found Crate very linear and yeah, I was just a bit bored of him. But Skellige are very much a kind of face aggro deck. They're looking at getting damage on the board, basically. They do have a lot of self-damage mechanics, which I'll get into in a minute, but the kind of OG Gwent Homecoming mechanic that Skellige run, and one of the most powerful mechanics they have, is something called Bloodthirst. So Bloodthirst is, I'm actually go to a different deck because it'll give me a better example. I think this is the deck that I'm trying to think about. Here you go. Okay, so Bloodthirst here. We have like this guy here. Okay, deploy. He comes out for 6, but he costs 8 provisions. However, if there's Bloodthirst of 3, meaning 3 enemies are damaged, doesn't matter how much damage, as long as their numbers are red, showing that they are below their base value, then you boost yourself by 5. And this goes for lots of cards in this deck. You've got locks that then Bloodthirst of 1, and you can lock a card. You have Bloodthirst of 2, and you can damage a card by 5. And there's lots of Bloodthirst mechanics. Okay, they have a card called not a great ship, Wild Boar. There you go, Wild Boar to see. Okay, damage all damaged enemy units by 2. If they're running Crate, and if you don't know what Crate is or who Crate is, then Crate is the leader that damages an enemy unit by 1, and it cooldown is 2. If they're running Crate and you haven't got a way of boosting your cards or healing your cards, Wild Boar can get out of hand. They will just ping all your cards for 1 cost. They don't care about doing big damage, because it means Wild Boar comes out at the end. You've got 10 cards on the board that are damaged. When Wild Boar comes out, the card itself comes out for a 4 body, and then it's doing 20 damage on top of that, which is massive. 24-point play. So, yeah, Bloodthirst isn't... It used to be ran just as an archetype when Homecoming first dropped. There's more mechanics to them now, but that's one of their big mechanics, is chipping away at damage. So if you're thinking, why they damage this one for 1? Why aren't they trying to damage this one? Why aren't they damage this one? They're probably playing for the Bloodthirst. They're playing for the cards that get big value. And it's good. It's good to know what cards get value with Bloodthirst. It's good to know that, okay, they're probably looking for the value of... I'm not even going to try and say his name. To Research. There you go. I said it. To Research. They're probably trying to get value here by getting the free Bloodthirst. How do I deny them that value? Knowing that, okay, if this is what they're going for, if they're starting to ping, I need to save as much value as I can. I'm going to start boosting cards, re-healing cards, as much as obviously you possibly can, okay? Obviously, they did have, or with Crimson Curse, a big element of I don't want to say self-harming, because that sounds really inappropriate, but damaging their self came into the game. And that works with stuff like Olaf, okay? So Olaf comes out, he's an 8 cost, he costs 11 provisions, but you boost Olaf by twice the amount he is damaged. So a big combo that people run with Olaf is Heim. So if you don't know what Heim does, Heim basically swap this unit's power with a damaged unit's power. And now Crate doesn't have to damage an enemy, he damages a unit by 1. So let's say they're playing Crate or Savalblod, and what they can do is they can play Olaf just here, and then they damage it by 1, so he's now on 7. So now Heim can swap the power of a damage unit. So now Olaf's down to 1, and Heim is boosted from 1 up to 7. And then they pop the order ability, which then boosts by double. So Olaf's damaged by 7, so he boosts by 7, meaning he goes to 15 points. It's a huge play. It's not ran as much as it used to be, but that's an example of how the self-damage and stuff can come out. Another big one is they have the 5 cost. I cannot remember how many provisions he is, or even remember what his name is, to be honest. But they have the 5 cost guy, who I'm pretty sure is 9 provisions. I might be completely wrong. But once he's damaged by 5, he's 5 cost. Once he's damaged by 3, I should have him in this deck. There he is. Okay, so Wildkarl, there you go. Once he's damaged, so he's 5 cost. Once he's damaged by 3, because he has what's called Berserk, and that is when you're damaged by over half. So he's damaged by 3. He transforms into a 12 cost bear that has the ability to destroy an allied unit and heal self, leaning more into the self-harming stuff. Okay, so or self-damage. I should stop saying self-harm. So he's leaning more into the self-damage stuff. And they have other cards that you damage themselves a lot. So you have cards down here, the Savalblod Priest, that every allied turn, on turn end, damage an allied unit to the right by 1, then boost self by 2. funny enough, the person on the other side of that unit is probably going to be Protector, which whenever the adjacent unit takes damage, boosts self by 1. So you're damaging for 1, but boosting by 2, plus 1. And then you're getting a tick here for it, so you're plus 2 every ally turn without playing a card. Playing cards. So you can see how tempo gets really big on the self-damage stuff. This can lead to some big combos. Skellige aren't so much like combos in one big round. Yes, they have some leaders to do some big combos in one big round. And an example of that would be if we look at Arnjoff as a leader. Then Arnjoff would do his leader ability. So he spawns an 11 cost on his side. But then, is it 11 cost or 9 cost? 11 cost on his side. And spawns 3 damaged units on the opponent's side. He can still play a card after, remember. Because they're 3 damaged units, it's key to remember that counts as Bloodthirst. So then you can drop the guy that boosts self by 5, comes out at another 11 because you got 3 Bloodthirst. So all of a sudden you got 22 point play off the leader ability, which is a massive combo. That isn't that common for Skellige. They more, lots of their combos happen over time, like Crate pinging you for Bloodthirst, or like Svalblod having the Priest and the Protector ticking together while pinging your enemies, and then self-damaging their own units to get big value over time, not so much in an instance. But Skellige is a very strong faction. It always has been around the top faction in since Homecoming. There's not really been a time when there's not been a Skellige deck in like the meta decks, really. They are always well up there and they can be very powerful. And I find people either love them or hate them. People either really enjoy playing Skellige. Some people don't like playing them. I don't like playing them too much. I try to make quirky decks like this Harold deck. But yeah, that's Skellige. Hopefully that helps with Skellige. Next, we go on to probably my third favourite faction, if I'm being honest. And that is Northern Realms. So if we try and find the Northern Realm deck, I must have, there you go, Meta Hensel. I'm not even playing this deck, I just made it because it was the meta. So Meta Hensel. Northern Realms. Northern Realms are your value over time faction. These guys can get out of hand. They are what is called engines, okay? They rely solely on engines. They're very much an engine faction. Now, engines are cards to get value over time. If you don't know what that means, it basically means we play a card. So let's say, okay, we play Spellweaver, okay? So Spellweaver comes out, he's 4 power, he's 4 body, he's got 5 provisions to him, and then he damages a unit by 1 charge. So he's got his base value. He comes out, he does 1 damage, he's 4 body, there's his 5. How's that an engine? It becomes an engine when gain 1 charge whenever you play a mage. And all of a sudden, if we go through our deck, we start realizing that actually we have a mage here, and we have obviously another mage here, we have a mage here, we have 2 mages here obviously, and we start going through and we actually start finding that we have several mages. And now all of a sudden, this guy's getting an extra damage every time. And wait a minute, I have 2 of these, so these are getting value over time. Much like Reinforced Trebuchet, okay? Play this on the ranged row. Every turn, on turn end, damage an enemy unit on the ranged row by 1. This stays on the board, it's just ping, ping, ping. It's getting value over time. If we go to another, I wonder if I still have the deck actually made up. This one here is a very old deck, but a perfect example of a value over time card is Viso. This card, untouched, it wins games. Simple as that. I say untouched because he's only 3 body, and I mean if it was any higher body, this card would be so overpowered. It's ridiculous. So it's Zeal. Play it on the ranged row, and you boost an ally by 1 charge. However, you gain 1 charge when either player plays a card, not a unit, a card. So all of a sudden they come out. They come out with 4 turns left. That's 8 extra charges they're going to get because every card played, meaning that all of a sudden they're going to start boosting cards, and they start boosting cards like Trident Infantry, which whenever it receives a boost, damaging random enemy unit by 1. All of a sudden that 8 charges ends up being 16 points on top of the body value of the cards. Like, that's massive. And that is how Northern Realms runs, everything's value over time. Anna is on every ally turn, on turn end, boost adjacent units by 1 if Anna is boosted. Of course you're going to boost Anna. She's going to start ticking. You don't touch it, value over time. And this is just a running theme throughout Northern Realms. There are some exceptions, but you even got like Queen Meave as a leader, boost an allied unit by 1, cooldown 2. Again, it's value over time. Botchling, damage or boost an enemy at the end of every turn, value over time. So that's what Northern Realms pretty much runs like, okay? So in terms of when you're playing against them, you want to be saving your locks and your removals for their key engines. What are the key engines? Anna. Anna is a key engine. You can get rid of her, brilliant. Even if you can damage her down to 1, that means I have to try and find a boost of 4 from somewhere. Viso is a huge engine. If they play an Avalanche, which is a card that gives another card immunity, chances are the following card is going to be Viso. They're going to give it immunity, okay? Yes, this card, untouched, leave it on the board, early game, throughout the round, it just gets out of hand. It gets silly. It's almost impossible to beat it if it goes untouched, okay? There's the Avalanche that syncs up solely with the Viso. Another card that gets value over time is Windhelm, okay? Every hour turn, on turn end, boost by 2 if it has a shield. Like, it's insane. It's like, it just starts ticking for 2 every single turn. If you play this in round 3, mid-round 3 against a monsters deck, chances are monsters don't have tons of removal, which you got into in a minute. This card just runs away, just gets ridiculous. And that's exactly what you need to know when you're playing Northern Realms. What are their engines, okay? Okay, you might think, I only have 2 removals left in my hand. What am I waiting to remove? You're probably waiting to remove a Viso and an Anna. The more you play the game, the more experience you know, what leader they're running, what chances are they're running those cards. But you want to be removing their engines. Get rid of a Northern Realm deck's engines, they lose. Simple as that. In terms of having last say, it's not hugely important. You do want to try and win round 1. The big thing you want to do against Northern Realms is you want to try and bleed Northern Realms. They are good in the long round. Meave gets the cooldown of 2 and the ability to pop 1. King Henselt is a little bit different. He can be good in the short round, but most of Northern Realms are best in the long round. They want the long round to get value off their engines. If you win round 1 and you're in the right position, bleed round 2 against Northern Realms. They hate a bleed round 2. It forces them to play cards they don't want to play. Even if you end up, if they keep card advantage, if you get some of the big engines out of the hand round 2, going into round 3, you can be in a huge position if they don't have their engines. Now, the slight difference that has is King Henselt runs this card a lot at the moment, Draug. Transform all allied humans into revenants. So basically it means that they come out of revenants. If you don't know what a revenant is, it damages a unit by 1, but death blow, so if it kills a unit, or if it basically kills a unit with that 1 damage, it spawns another revenant. These guys can just get bonkers crazy out of hand. They just start spawning all over the place. You're running Lacerate or Gimpy, you win. But yeah, so that's the one where they don't get value over time. They're still running their engines, but they're normally running engines into Draug. That's mostly King Henselt at the moment. But that's Northern Realms wrapped up. Next, we're going to go to Monsters, which is my second favourite faction, okay? If you know your factions, you know by process of elimination what is my favourite faction, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Monsters, my second favourite faction. So Monsters are, they've seen lots of iterations over since Homecoming dropped. Monsters are best seen as... They're pretty much, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way towards Monsters whatsoever, but they are probably the most simplest faction to play in terms of their archetypes. You're basically getting massive numbers on the board and winning by overpowering your opponent. You're not removing tons of their engines, you're not removing tons of their cards, you're not really trying to mess with their decks that much. You're just basically going, how can I get as big a numbers on my side of the board as possible? And where there has been so much face aggro and face removal come into the game, Monsters, that's when Monsters have taken a big hit. So Monsters have a mechanic called Thrive. So Thrive, if you don't know, is... So let's say, for example, this Wyron is a 3 cost. And if I played a 4 cost next turn, the Wyvern would boost up to 4. If I played a 6 cost, it would still only go to 4. Okay, it doesn't boost up the same value. But then, as long as I'm playing something that's a higher value than the card is, it will tick by 1. Thrive is kind of, again, value over time. It ticks up. The value over time, combined with the big units of something like Spear Tip, it's insane. Like, it's insane value. People used to run what's called Tool Monsters with Woodland Spirit when Homecoming first dropped. In the long round 3, you were getting 100 plus points. Like, it was just getting out of hand when people didn't know what to do with it. Now, lots of cards like Geralt are being played, removes an enemy over 8 power and stuff like that. Then you're getting a lot more. Monsters had to find ways of being clever, of getting value without getting removed tons. Okay, so monsters effectively are just going to be getting big numbers on the board and outpowering your opponents. Now, I mentioned earlier that monsters don't have a ton of removal, which is a true fact. I'm just going to take a quick drink. Okay, so you want to be running, making sure your monster deck has some form of removal in there. I often run a Geralt in a monsters deck. Yes, it can brick, don't get me wrong, but because I don't have ways of stopping engines. Against Northern Realms, I'm normally getting value off Geralt because they're ticking over the 8 eventually. But having something like Cyclops, which can destroy an adjacent ally and then throw it at an enemy, having stuff like Parasite, which does damage or boosts an enemy, damages an enemy by 6 or boosts an ally by 6, is pretty huge. And having the Crones to maybe potentially get the 6 damage out off Whisperous is pretty massive. But you can see after that, I've got some damage down here. I've got a reset down here. There's not really any other removal. So against the Northern Realms deck, if they play Viso mid-round 3 and I don't have any more removal, I'm going to struggle. I have to try and outpower. And chances are that Northern Realms deck does still have removal. So they're going to get rid of my Thrive. They're going to stop my engines ticking over. That's where monsters have kind of hit a bit of a brick wall. There are Death Wish decks that you can run. Unseen Elder isn't in the best place at the moment. But Death Wish is effectively you're consuming. So by consuming cards, you're again getting big numbers on the board, but by cards that come back. So, for example, if we try and find, here we go. We go to Unseen Elder. So, for example, Detlaf here. Consume this unit from the graveyard. Consume this unit. So, Death Wish on this unit. So, you say you eat the unit, it's dead. You summon this unit from the graveyard to the same road. This unit's ability is limited to 2 uses and does not refresh when it leaves the battlefield. Basically means you can eat this twice and it will come back. So you can eat this with something like Chiron and it will come back, meaning it's a 15-point play because you're eating it twice. You're getting the 10 points for eating it twice in Chiron and it's coming back as a 5-cost card at the end. It's another way of getting big units on the board. Consume is a whole mechanic. There are Death Wish cards down here that once you eat it or you destroy it, it damages a random enemy by 4. There's ways of kind of getting some tempo with this. Unseen Elder used to be very good at getting tempo. The issue is there's lots of locks, and again, there's lots of removal. So you play something like a Barber Gaze at the moment, or if they're playing a Barber Gaze against you, if you remove it, if you're playing against most monster decks, save your removal or your locks for their consume targets, they can really struggle. A lot of their decks are built around eating stuff because another big mechanic they have is dominance. And dominance is... I don't think I have it in this deck anymore. No, dominance is riders. There we go. Dominance basically means you have to have the highest unit on the board that isn't that card. So I would need, say, like a 7 cost on the board. I'd play Wild Hunt Rider and then the dominance ability would go off. So they'll be consuming cards. Monsters will be doing lots of stuff to get the big numbers on the board, to get the dominance ability to play cards that rely on dominance. Good way around that is damage their cards. Simply, if you think, okay, they're setting up for dominance now, you can mess with a monster deck by just damaging their big cards and keep making sure you have the dominance. And it stops them from getting thinning out. It stops them from getting cards out. If they play Thrive, remove the Thrive. They really start to struggle when you start removing the Thrive, when you start removing stuff that is their engines. And yeah, they can really kind of start to stutter when that starts to happen. And that's pretty much monsters. So which moves us on to the final faction, which I think is easy to know what it is. And we are at Nilfgaard. More importantly, my favourite leader in the game. Yeah, people can hate me for it, but hey ho. Nilfgaard. Nilfgaard is a funny faction at the moment. It's got a bit more of a rework recently. It's still not in the best place. The issue Nilfgaard has at the moment is it doesn't really have an identity. Scoia'tael have got an identity. Skellige, Northern Realms, monsters all have their own kind of identity. Nilfgaard doesn't. It has some mechanics that like are on one or maybe two cards. It has other cards that, like another mechanic that's just useless, like assimilate. There's just so many things that it does. It's a jack of all trades but master of none, really, which makes it at the moment perfect for a mid-range deck. So Nilfgaard, the basic rule of thumb against Nilfgaard is they're looking to troll your deck. That's pretty much what they're trying to do. Most Nilfgaard decks will have a way of messing with your deck, of doing something to your deck. There might be an element of mill. So for example, they might run something like Viper Witches, which if you don't know what they do, these guys here reveal the top card from your opponent's deck and banish it. So that's it, it's gone. These guys can get really lucky. They can pull it out and all of a sudden they're just showing you your finisher card. You're playing Fran, they pulled out Aeglis. Aeglis is banished now, she's gone, you can't even play her from the graveyard. Done. They're probably going to forfeit. So that's an element of what they try to do. Okay, you have Swears, which is it seizes an enemy unit with 3 or less power. So again, you're kind of messing with the deck. You're nicking cards. You have lots of locks. You have the Witcher trio, so Seret, Aleppo, and Orcs, and these guys are locking and damaging people. Okay, you then run more locks down here by doing this. So they're playing engines. You're just locking it and locking it and locking it. You have cards like Infiltrator that on the round end shuffle this unit into your opponent's deck. They don't want a 4 cost on their side in round 3. They want their big engines. They mulligan into this. They're going to be pretty pissed off. Little side note, if you have a different card back to what your enemy's playing, you can see if they've got this in their hand. And I think a lot of people don't realise that's the case. So you can see when this is in their hand. So you know, I can push now. I know what that card is, basically. So, yeah. Nilfgaard, on the base of it, are basically trying to mess with what the opponent's doing. That's the whole idea. They got spies, they've got soldiers, they've got some big combos they can have. Overall, they don't have a set kind of way of doing things. Now, if you're playing against Nilfgaard and they're playing a Roach, chances are, well, the only reason they're playing Roach is because they have the Asaya combo later, which means they play Asaya on the ranged row, and it brings Roach back out the drop area. What you want to be doing there is if you're playing a mirror match of Nilfgaard, steal their Roach. Whatever you do, if they play a card, brings Roach out, use Swears and nick their Roach. That instantly, you've just saved a lot of value. That's made Asaya a pretty damn useless card now. She's 6 power, she's got 8 provisions. What the hell are they going to put in their deck? They don't care. They might throw something in round 2 and get lucky and draw into round 3. If so, so be it, okay? They're going to be running the Witcher trio. I'll be amazed if they're not running the Witcher trio. And so then you need to start counting their locks. Chances are most of them will be running minimum 1 Alba Cavalry. Most of them will be running 2. So then if you're playing like Northern Realms and you're playing with engines, you need to start thinking, okay, they've played both Albas and they've played Lefo and he locked me. They still have an Orcs in hand. I need to play something to bait the lock out before I play another card. If I play Viso now, they're going to lock it. I need to bait that lock out before I can play Viso. But they're going to be doing the same. They're going to be thinking, Viso's in hand, I need to save my Orcs for that. But then if you play a card that needs locking, it's going to put them in that position. That's where you need to start thinking if you're playing against Nilfgaard. If you're playing with Nilfgaard, again, you need to think about where are you getting your tempo from. Because Nilfgaard can really struggle with getting numbers on the board. That's the biggest issue to have, especially Usurper, okay? That's why Octvis is in here, is purely a round 3 finisher, because normally I'm getting around about 13 to 15 value off Octvis, as well as whatever I play on top of that, okay? They have big cards like Tibor, and there are ways of them setting up with Tibor combo, so they can get Tibor out, he's 13. There's ways of summoning him to the row, and he comes out for without popping the ability. He can get big numbers on the board. They run Leo. Almost any Nilfgaard deck is running Leo at the moment, okay, guys? Which basically destroys an enemy unit with 8 or more power, or destroys an enemy Witcher. This card can brick really, really easy. If you know that they're running Leo, and pretty much I'm telling you now, pretty much any Nilfgaard deck is running Leo, play around it, this can lose them game because this will be kept in the hand. If you play a mirror matchup, they're going to get value on it. They'll probably play it on Lefo, and they'll get value there, or they'll play it on Sarah, or they'll play on Orcs, and they'll get okay value on it. But yeah, that's pretty much an overview of what each faction does. Now, apologies if you come by this video and you wanted like in-depth guides, but it was just hopefully Afraid of the Folly. If you're still here, this video has been of help to you because they're the ones that comment. They basically said they want to know what is each faction trying to do when they're playing against this faction. What's this faction trying to do? So if you're playing Nilfgaard, I've spoken a lot about round 2 bleeds. Playing Nilfgaard, they don't really care too much for last say. If I'm being honest, they don't need last say Nilfgaard. So don't. If you're playing on red, don't feel like if you can catch on even, brilliant. But don't feel like you have to try and win for last say. Yes, there's a few combos that might rely on the last say approach. Most of the time, they're just a mid-range deck at the moment anyway. The times you could say with Vivienne, which is a card that puts a unit to its provision power. And the reason you'd want last save for that is because they play on something that puts it to a 10. If they're playing a Geralt, then they're just going to remove that card. So you'd want last save if you're running like a Vivienne in your deck. But also Nilfgaard can be... Most Nilfgaard can be bled quite easily round 2. Calvate Shoop hates being bled out round 2. And if they force them to play Shoop, they don't have a round 3. Same as like the card Usurper. Hates being bled round 2 because Usurper struggles for tempo anyway. Needs a bit of a longer round to kind of get numbers on the board, get value over time with their stuff like the Norska Sergeants and Magni Divisions. So yeah, playing against Nilfgaard, and again, if it's right, you definitely want to be pushing. Not many Nilfgaard decks. They may try and bleed you round 2 with the Sire combo. So they play Roach round 1. They can play a Sire round 2 on the range row, bring out Roach. That's 9 points on the board, which is a big task for, like a big unit for you guys to try and get past. So do be mindful of that round 2 with Nilfgaard. But overall, Nilfgaard, the biggest thing, biggest tip I can give a new player against Nilfgaard is count the locks. And remember what they've got in their hand. If they played Orcs and it locked several units, you know they've got a Serret in hand. If they played Serret and it done 5 damage, you know that they've got Orcs in hand. If they played Lefo and it done 3 damage but no lock, you know they've got a Serret in hand but they haven't got an Orcs in hand. And then if they played 1 lock and you're thinking, okay, they've probably got another Alba lock in their hand as well. So you know when to play your engines, and you're not just going to throw an engine out round 1, throw TA onto it, and they're going to lock it, because that's what they do against Nilfgaard. But hopefully that's been helpful for you guys. I feel like my mouth is very dry. I feel like I've spoke very quickly. I feel like I've just kind of rambled at you. It wasn't an easy video to do because I felt like it didn't have a strict identity. But please let me know in the comments below what you guys thought to the video. Has it helped you? And is this seriously is this series helping you guys? Because I would love to know if you're finding help with this series, if you're finding help with this new to Gwent approach that I'm kind of taking. And this series will evolve as changes happen to the game. But yeah, that is going to wrap this video up, guys. I do have plans for next video, which is going to be based solely on provisions and deck building. But please let me know in the comments below if there's anything you want to know about Gwent. You're a new player. You want any advice? If you want me to do a video for you, literally for you, let me know in the comments. I'll squeeze it in. Exact same happened. My last video was because a 9-year-old kid wanted to know how to turn their monster starter deck into a semi-okay woodland spirit starter deck. So I've done a video for them on that, and I got some feedback from them today. They really enjoyed the video, and I think they're getting some success with the deck. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy to do videos for you guys. Please let me know in the comments below what you want if you're a new player, and I will try to facilitate for that. But that is going to wrap it up, guys. I do stream every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Sunday over on twitch.com/WhatsApp Woody. The link is in the description below as well. Head over there if you want to see me play some Gwent. And yeah, thank you so much for stopping by, guys. If you like the video, then give it a little like, and that way I know that you guys do like it, and I know you're probably here to the end because you heard me say that. And if you want to keep up to date with more Gwent content, including deck videos, including live reactions to live streams or expansions, and of course the new to Gwent series, make sure you subscribe, guys. But until then, have a great day, morning, afternoon, whatever it is where you are, and goodbye, guys. Ciao.